Many thanks for your company here. Now, they suffer abuses ranging from physical and verbal to sexual exploitation and even starvation while serving their slave masters. These are the plights of many children between the ages of 7 and 18 who've been given away by their parents at very small tokens to mostly fishermen in order to assist them in their fishing expeditions. They're also denied education and proper medical care in most cases. The International Justice Mission has conducted a research and produced an extensive report into child labor on the Volta Lake of Ghana and paints a bad picture of the scenario, of the situation. So what are they recommending as solution to the challenge? A senior attorney with the International Justice Mission, Ama Mankwa, is my guest in studio this morning to tell us more about their findings. Also, Right to Be Free, a non-governmental organization, has also been rescuing some victims on the lake and brings us a chilling and interesting revelation of the real lives of some of these children being exploited. Eric Piesa is the director and founder of Right to Be Free. He also joins me in studio to share some experiences and stories with us while working on the lake to save these children. Ladies and gentlemen, and you're welcome to the studios of Joy News. Well, before we start off our discussion, here's an example of what happens to children on the Volta Lake, courtesy Right to Be Free. Let's watch this short feature.
Of the rules and regulations.
Lake Volta, located in eastern Ghana, is the world's largest man-made lake. It was formed when a dam was built to provide electricity to parts of the country. Unfortunately, Lake Volta is also where trafficked children or child laborers work in the hazardous fishing trade. Eric Piazza is the founder of the non-governmental organization Right to Be Free in Africa. He researches the child laborers and plans the rescue missions. Here in his office, he shows us where the rescue mission will take place. Eric explains that the child laborers are trafficked from parts of the Central Region, Greater Accra, the Volta region, and some of them as far as the Western region. All along the coastline, fishermen work. However, during the off-season, they migrate north to Lake Volta, and they take children with them to help them work. Lake Volta reaches depths up to 75 meters, or about 246 feet. It covers what was once part of Ghana's rainforest, so tree trunks are sometimes visible from the water's surface. Here are 3 young boys working alone without the fishermen, which is often the case. The boys, some as young as 4 years old, start working as early as 4 in the morning when it's still dark outside. They work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, and receive only 1 small meal a day, which is sometimes withheld as punishment. The canoes are quite large for these young boys to handle, and you can see how thin their bodies are. This boy, named Selassie, lost his left eye after diving under the water to untangle a fishing net, and he swam into a tree branch. This underscores the real dangers these children face every day while fishing. Sometimes the boys have to sleep outside when fishing on different islands on the lake, increasing the risk of contracting malaria, so their legs often bear scars from insect bites. This trafficked boy bears a scar from being hit on the head with a canoe oar, a common sign of the abuse these children endure. This young boy named Kofi slipped and fell on the side of the canoe. His master failed to seek medical attention, but instead offered Kofi pain medication similar to acetaminophen. According to Kofi, as he healed, his spine started bending, making it difficult to stand straight. Despite his physical challenges, Kofi had to resume fishing after a month. He can't stand upright for more than 2 minutes, and he experiences pain and numbness in his legs and feet, in addition to pain in his back. After Kofi was rescued, he was diagnosed with spinal tuberculosis. It's 4:30 in the morning, and many trafficked boys start their workday in the pre-dawn hours when it's still dark outside. Shortly after dawn, we came across a fisherman and a young boy working on the lake. Eric finds out the boy is 10 years old and his name is Kwame. He's the only boy working for the fisherman, although in some cases, a fisherman may own more than 1 canoe and have several boys working for him. Kwame frequently dives underwater since the fishing net often is caught on something. Eric puts his hand in the water and says, "It is very, very cold." The fisherman tugs gently on the fishing net to see if it's untangled. Eventually, it becomes free, and he starts pulling it up. Kwame remains underwater as he continues to free the net. On this particular dive, he stays underwater for 40 seconds. Eric, meanwhile, continues to talk to the fisherman to develop a relationship. Finally, Kwame resurfaces from the freezing water and pulls himself into the boat. He continues to shiver as he faces Eric so they can talk. Kwame tries to answer Eric's questions and watches Eric stops the fisherman when he tries to speak for Kwame. At times, Kwame finds it difficult to speak because he's shivering so much. Kwame's body is overdeveloped from the intense physical labor that any adult would find challenging. This strenuous labor creates microfractures, which weaken bones, making them more susceptible to fracture or breakage. This often painful condition impedes bone growth, so these boys won't reach their normal height even if they are rescued. Eric was successful in negotiating the release of Kojo and Finuku. Here he reads the contract to the fisherman and explains that by releasing the boys today, he agrees to no longer traffic children. If he does, he can be prosecuted. So this truly stops child trafficking at its root cause. The fisherman is not paid any money to do this, but he will receive assistance in the form of a microcredit for new fishing equipment and/or services such as joining a cooperative program with other fishermen. Eric and the fisherman walk Kojo and Finuku to the rescue boat. It's so good to finally see the boys smiling as they realize they are finally free. 2 years later, I came to visit Kojo at his school.
Your teacher says that you are doing very well,
Yes.
and you are ahead.
Yes.
Yes. So what is your favorite subject in school?
Math.
Math?
Yes.
You like math the best?
Yes.
What is your least favorite subject?
Ewe.
Oh, you don't like learning Ewe? Do you like English?
Yes.
You speak English very well.
Yes.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be a doctor.
A doctor?
Yes.
You know what you told me 2 years ago when I asked you that question? Do you remember?
Yes.
What did you say?
I want to be a footballer.
Yes, you told me you want to be a football player.
As for Kofi, who had the curved spine, he was able to have corrective surgery thanks to the doctors at the Focus Foundation. He's now recovering well and undergoing physical therapy.
Interesting, isn't it? I mean, I just cannot imagine the kind of work that these young, some of them as young as 4, are asked to do that some adults cannot even think of doing. So I've still got Eric Piesa and Ama Amankwa with me here in the studio. Ama is with the International Justice Mission and Eric is with Right to Be Free, and they put up that documentary we just showed. So Eric, that's your work. Tell me, how is it for you? Because you get onto that canoe, you've not met this gentleman before, and I'm thinking, look, if he pushes you off, do you swim?
A little bit.
Wow.
But I have a, what do you call it?
You had a life jacket.
Life jacket. I think I can float if they push me there.
How widespread is this?
Thank you very much. The child trafficking on the lake is just an aspect or worst form of child labor. And if you take the Volta Lake, which is a man-made lake, from the top there, from the upper northern part coming down to southern, most of the islands on this lake have children that they use them in fishing. So it's widespread around that area. And you can go from, let's say, Yeji to Ketekrachi to Pando to Akosomo, all of them. Where they have this lake, they have children working with them.
And it's interesting that these children are mostly not from that part of the country. They are usually brought in from other places.
Yes. Most of it, see, the whole issue started when people start to migrate or move from the ocean around the coastal area towards the Volta Lake when the lake was created. They normally go with children who have finished what they call San 7, the middle school, who are a bit of adult, who may not going to go to school, they want to learn fishing, so they take them along. with time, these children begin to rebel against them. So the problem is that then they went to bring children who are younger than them. And then these children are submissive, they're obedient, etc., etc. So based upon that, they start now going for children to use instead of using adults or adolescents who are above the age of 15, 16, 17 then. That's how it all started.
So let's talk about the number of children you've rescued. I'll come to you shortly because you've also been doing some extensive work in this area. Let's talk about the number of children you've rescued. And you, like I mentioned earlier, you just entered this canoe. You don't know this gentleman. Have you had any real confrontational scenarios?
Yes, we have. We have. You know, quite one time around the Kitakrachi area, we went to do some rescue, went to a village. There's this parent who said one fisherman came for his son, his daughter, and he can't find her. So we traced them, we found an island, went there to rescue him. And then this man said he will not allow the child to go. And he chased her with a machete. So we have to go back to Kitakrachi, look for a judge who gives a court order, went to some military men and some Navy men to go and rescue the child. In some places, we have that kind of confrontation. But what we do is that we do a lot of education. We go to the villages, educate them with the fishermen, with the chiefs, and we have some kind of interaction with them so that they will welcome our messages and then they will receive us. But some places, they don't want to see you.
So how many children have you rescued, would you know?
Since 2004, we've rescued about 1,090.
Wow.
Not from Right to Be Free, but since I started working this job.
So, I mean, we are safe to say if you did not go out to rescue these children, all of them will still probably be on the lake. Some of them would have lost their lives because we see that a lot in the reports. But Ama, you work with IJM and you've come up with a recent report. Does what you're seeing, especially in this documentary, really attest to what you've gathered in your research?
Yes, it does. Let me use this opportunity to greet your viewers and then also to weigh in a little bit on what Eric has just been saying. We conducted our research on only the southern half of the lake. Okay. And we engaged almost 800,000 children on the lake in the process of that research. We found out that almost 60%, slightly over 57% of those children had migrated to that area for labor purposes. They had been sent there, trafficked there for labor purposes. So you can imagine that's just on the southern half of the lake. And if you are looking at the lake in its entirety, the number is vast.
So, Ama, do you think, I mean, I have been hearing the issue of let's work and fight against child labor for a very long time, I mean, since I can remember. Do you think we can do away with this totally? And how soon, looking at the research you've done, looking at the people you meet and the kind of mindsets that exist in these communities, how soon will we be able to, even if we can do away with it totally?
So the research we have conducted, it's very much in relation to child trafficking onto the lake for labor purposes, and that only covers that aspect of it, which is a very extreme form of child labor. So the research speaks more into that rather than the issue of child labor in its entirety.
Yes, but you work in other places. I mean, if we put your report aside, you work in other places. Do you get the sense that people are actually putting a stop to child labor?
So when it comes to Ghana in particular, there are people who understand what the fine line of child labor and assisting parents is. And there are those who are in complete denial about the situation, and they see any form of labor as being something that is being done to assist. But when you actually look at the definition of what child labor is, even within the law, by ILO's definition, even in the Constitution, you find out it is work that a child is made to do that is hampering their education, their development, even their physical, their health. And so it's not everything that a child is supposed to do. Now, people still need to be educated on it, no doubt. But I think the point we want to make is child labor in itself is a violation of a child's rights. That's a criminal offense. It's something that we need to educate people on, but then we also need to make people aware that if this continues, then law enforcement is probably the only way that you can get people to stop it. And if that happens, I believe, yes, it is solvable.
And do you think are the law enforcement agencies helping in Ghana with your work?
From our experience so far, and let me use this opportunity to also say well done to Ghana Government, Ministry of Gender, DSW, Ghana Police. We've been working with them. They have been cooperative together. We have assisted them, but they have taken the lead in the rescue of children. Just this year, we've had 2 rescues, one in January and the second one in April, where we've rescued in total about 54 children. So that's good work, and I can commend them for that, yes.
All right, so Eric, you have, the image keeps coming back, you getting onto that canoe, not knowing this fisherman, the risk that you're taking to save these children, I must say, is highly commendable. But do you see this ending soon? Can we totally get rid of child labor, starting from getting all the children off the lake?
Thank you very much. I think when you come to talk of child labor, it's bigger. It's a bigger set. And child trafficking, what we're doing is also a subset within the child labor, as Sama said. I think that about a couple of weeks, about 3 weeks ago, I went on the lake, and then we cruised on the lake for about almost 2-3 hours. And to surprise to know that when on the lake, we found out that normally within even 30 minutes, you see a lot of children in canoe. But for 2 hours on the lake, we didn't see a single canoe with children. To me, I was impressed. I was like, what is happening? It means that the education we are doing is going down.
And you go onto the lake unannounced.
Yes.
So it's not like they knew you were coming and put up.
And
okay.
it was there. We cruised into about, maybe after 3 hours, we saw one canoe with children in it. And when they saw our boat, they started speeding. And we knew that, okay, there's something. But at first, it wasn't like that. So to me, I believe that with continuous education, with continuous intervention, with continuous law enforcement approach towards it, and with the civil society also doing their bit of it, we can fight it. We can reduce it.
All right. However,
the issue of child labor in the country as a whole, it seems to be on a little bit of a rise. It's going up because in 2003, the Ghana Labor Standard Survey, something which they did, realized that we have about 1.27 million people out of the 6 million children working on child labor. But in 2014, we realized that it's gone up a little bit, up to about slightly below 2 million people, children, working in that area.
Could it be because we are paying too much attention onto the lake and are not looking at other places like the farms, talk of some children working in certain industries and all that? Could that be a reason?
I think the farm, if you even look at the farm, because of cocoa, government has spent a lot of time in the farm area. For instance, in 2008 to now, there was this program called NAPLEC where they were looking at children working in the cocoa sector because our cocoa partners said that if we don't work towards reduction of children in the cocoa sector, they will not buy our cocoa. So government commits a lot of money and a lot of effort with civil society, cocoa board and rest to fight that money. So it went down. It's gone down in that area. However, there are some few areas that children are working in the agri sector. Now what is picking up is the mining sector, the gather and sell, the Galamsey area, where we have a lot of children also involved in that aspect. So I believe that with continued education and also commitment of funds to the right government agencies to work on these things, I believe that we can curb it.
Amma, what are your recommendations, I mean, in your report? What should we do to put this whole issue to rest so we don't have to be discussing this every year and every time?
Okay, thank you. So let me ride on the back of what Eric said earlier about going for a trip on the lake last week. And for about 2 hours, they didn't see any boats containing children in it. That's music to my ears. I believe that the recommendations we've been given from the very beginning, I mean, IJM has been in Ghana now since 2014, where we were saying there was work being done, but we felt that prosecution was missing a little bit. And that the government should intensify its effort in bringing the perpetrators to book. and that should hopefully deter them from doing this further. So as a result of the rescues and the presence of law enforcement on the lake, you see when they saw the boat, they started dashing, they started running away. And we think that the government, having taken on board the recommendation, if we're able to spread that into other areas of child labor as well, where they know that this is a crime, there is education being going. Let me put it this way. There are 4 ways that have been identified for tackling the trafficking issue, and it is partnership, prevention, prosecution, and protection of potential victims and victims of it. So from the beginning, we've been saying this has to be done simultaneously at the same time. So there is extensive education going on where people are being told about the problem. Even those who were not aware of it are getting to know more about it at the moment. There is protection for those who have been rescued. And then at the moment, there is law enforcement which is going on. And we see that if it is solving the problem on the lake slowly, if we are able to replicate that in all the other areas like the mining, the cotton industry, in the quarries, that should also hopefully help solve the problem.
So it's the 4P recommendation. That is
the movement, yes, prevention, protection, partnership, and prosecution.
Okay, I like the prosecution bit because many people have come out to say, look, if you set an example, for example, if a parent is found to have sold their child, and even your report says sometimes for as little as 10 cities, if a parent is found to have sold their child for that meager amount, you should apply the law. Then other parents will sit back and say, well, I don't want to go to jail for doing this. Then it could be an example. Do you agree, Eric?
Yeah, I agree. That's why I think in fighting the human trafficking or child trafficking, as I say, you need the 4 Ps. But my other aspect of this child labor, which I think we also will have to work on as a country, is that we have a lot of issues going on the streets. We see law enforcement, children working on the street, children stay on the street, children being rented by their parents or some people to work on the street. This is all part of child labor, which is also dangerous to the health of the children. So I think that once we look at the worst form of child labor in terms of the fishing area, we should look at that issue. For example, children on the streets begging, children on the streets selling pure water and tea on the high streets, children in the market doing all kinds of things on the market, that kind of thing, which you also have to look into.
You know, I was coming to that point of the changing forms of child labor and whether that could also be hampering the fight against it, because like you mentioned, right now we are seeing children on the streets begging, some will hold on to your dress, all that, you know, they have to come and account. And I met a young boy like that. He had moved from Takoradi to Kumasi. He was with his mother in Takoradi, and in Kumasi his father said, you have to beg. Now this boy gets onto the street and you can see the difference. He has well-ironed clothes. So I approached him and he told me, this is my story. So his father has given him a minimum. You should come home with a certain amount of money. The changing forms of child labor, how do we address those ones? For example, the begging, forgive me, is becoming a nuisance nowadays. Everywhere you go, people are peeping into your car. Even if you're eating, you don't have your privacy. How do we deal with that?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead.
Well, you see, my problem is this, that there's clearly a reversal of role here where a parent is sending their child to go and bring in income. Isn't it parents who are supposed to be looking after their children? That is a crime. And that is a violation of that child's rights. Education definitely is going to make this parent realize that this is wrong. But even without the education, let's put that aside for a minute. I mean, by default, shouldn't a parent know that that is wrong? You know, society itself should see that these things are wrong, and we should be able to speak into it ourselves. You know, if I am seeing this going on, it should be my business. I should be able to say, you shouldn't send your boy out there. So even without law enforcement getting involved in this, society needs to play a very big role in trying to bring this to an end, because it's definitely a nuisance.
I would encourage people not to give money to children on the street begging. If you stop giving them the money, they will stop coming. But once you keep on giving them money, they keep on coming. 2, We have even some of them who have now developed a method of trying to clean your windshield with some things. You see, if you don't encourage it, they will stop. If you want to help a child, look for a place where children are being kept who have problems. Go there and help them. But if you I saw some woman somewhere who having a baby on the street. I don't know where they go and rent them or something, and use the baby in the scorching sun to beg for money. It's abuse. You see, if we as people, Ghanaians, we are good, which is good, but we should stop giving children money on the street because they are begging for it.
And would you agree if I say we shouldn't buy from children who are selling on the streets?
I would agree with you.
Is that too harsh?
If you can start a movement like that, don't buy anything on the child selling on the streets. You can be helping us to curb child labor.
Interesting. But Eric, talking about prosecution, have we been able to successfully prosecute any parent? Do we know of anything like that?
Yeah, I think the police and then what do you call it, the IJM and then the Attorney General Department have, but we don't have a lot of them. We need to increase the prosecution so that we can reduce it. Because look, we've been doing a lot of prevention, the protection, but what we're not doing was prosecution, and that's why we're happy that we
are we sorry to cut in. Are we being too sympathetic in dealing with child labor, especially with the prosecution angle?
It seemed so in the beginning, and there were people who had very genuine reasons about people being educated, you know, that this is wrong before you. Generally, in our Ghanaian context, from our cultural background, we don't necessarily like prosecuting people, going to arrest people. And so from the beginning, the approach was to educate, sensitize people, let them know. But people were being sensitized and people were re-trafficking their children. So after you have come to know and you are still doing it, then the only thing is prosecution. Look, this crime exists because of impunity. Those who have done it in the past got away with it. Those who are still doing it keep getting away with it. And that's the reason why they are doing it. It's when you are doing something and there's no retribution, nobody is going to come after you, and you feel you can do as you please with your child because they're a commodity. They are not. So now that the prosecution aspect of it has started and it is vigorous, we can definitely see the changes. And we are hoping that if all 4 P's are being done simultaneously, we should end this menace in this country.
Let me say something. Let me put a caveat there. You see, prosecution of the parents is also part of this issue. But the problem is that if the country, as a country, if we don't have systems and structures to sustain these children once you prosecute their parents, then we are creating another problem to follow. Because if you say you want to prosecute a parent, which is good, do we have a place to place this child? Or if there are 5 of them, place them. Who will take care of them when they come back? These were some of the issues, the factor that we considered before the prosecution.
Now, Eric, as Right to be Free, you have been rehabilitating some of these children and even taking care of some of them, I mean, with the help of Focus, like what we saw, the gentleman who had the curved spine over there. How are the children doing? Usually when you bring them, how difficult or easy is it to bring them back into society?
You see, what they first need is rehabilitation. Every child who's gone through a lot of trauma needs rehabilitation. But I can tell you that most of the kids that we rescue, whether Right to be Free, whether any NGO rescue them, you realize that when they go back to school, most of them end up becoming school prefects. One of them who just finished a school in Accra here, and he was the school prefect of the school. One of them is now a nurse. I can give you an example of them that when you give them that hope, they put in so much effort. And so I believe that if we give these children hope, one of them will one day become somebody we never know in this country. So I think that it's good to help rescue them, to rehabilitate them, to prevent them from even going that place in the first place. Last time when I went, one of the boys who had finished school, I took him back to the place. And he was sharing a story with some of the children we met in the league. He was like, it's not true. You look at the way you're dressed. He said, no. And he started telling them what he was doing. And they were shocked. So I believe that once we give them that hope, they can make a difference in our society.
But how easy is it for you rehabilitating these kids?
It's not easy. At times, when they come for school fees, you don't have. But what we do, which helps us most, that we try to help the parents into somebody called some grants to start some business. So that alongside the line, the children can go back to their parents and support them. But you can't take both children on their own. You can't put them in a boarding house and take care of them. I don't believe in that approach. I believe that every child needs to stay with the parent or relative to grow with. So when you rescue a child as a rehabilitation, we have to look for the parents and see what we can do to help the parents' problem, so he will not take the child back and give the child back to the parents.
So, Amma, you're talking about creating the systems, I mean, collectively as a country. What do you think we can do to sustain the economic capacity of these parents to be able to even take care of their own?
Well, there is livelihood empowerment, but even before we get to livelihood empowerment, we need to build shelters. That there should be places where these children could go through rehabilitation whilst we are considering and assessing families for livelihood empowerment. And so that is even missing to start with. Eric nailed it right on the head. It is one of the major problems which we feel needs to be improved. From the government side. The president recently said that under his watch he's going to make all of this go away. Well, we are employing Mr. President, please, we need shelters for aftercare purposes. DSW, Department of Social Development, needs to be resourced to also be able to do their work and let these children go through rehabilitation. LEAP is good. More of such programs to assist parents who have had to do this because they are in dire straits or they didn't really have any other option. And we do meet genuine parents who have been forced into situations like this where deception may have been the root cause of sending their child somewhere because they thought they would have a better life. And then they ended up, you know, being forced to work. But then there are those ones who are just who are just culpable, who just want to make money off your kids. But Amma, before you go, the IJM is also into rescuing children and putting them to rehab. Recently, we had a story, one MP in one area who is accusing you of kidnapping the children. What's happening? Let me answer the first question. The IJM that's rescuing in collaboration with government, but it is government-led initiative. The police lead the rescues. The police, the Department of Social Welfare, and Ministry of Gender lead the rescue. We only do logistical support, technical support, stuff like that. So we don't lead the rescues. And in relation to the other matter that you mentioned, there is an ongoing issue, but it's before Parliament, and Parliament has selected some committees to investigate it, so I'll probably not want to go into it for the time being.
Right, thank you very much. We can talk about this for the whole day, but unfortunately that's all time will allow us. Amma Mankwa is a senior attorney with the International Justice Mission, and very own Eric Piesa. He's been here twice already in a matter of weeks, and he's with Right to Be Free, and we've been having a conversation on child labor even as the world marks the day against child labor. I would just want to encourage you, you can report any parent, or if you suspect that any child is being used in a manner that amounts to child labor, you can play your part in this fight against child labor, even as I play my part. And right here on this set, we've said, please do not give monies to children on the streets. You are encouraging this new form of child labor, and please do not buy from children on the streets as well. Who knows? We could start this movement and save the lives of all these children. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming into the studio. Now, away from child labor, hundreds of people have been displaced after tidal waves hit some coastal communities Sunday dawn. Seawater reportedly flooded large portions of land between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. inundated homes and destroying several properties. In Cape Coast, in the central region, one person is reported to have died with dozens of canoes destroyed. The fishermen there are appealing to government to help build what they call a breakwater to prevent such occurrence in future.
Yesterday we realized the sea had overflown its banks and some fishermen wanted to cast their nets into the sea. One person dived into the sea, but we managed to rescue him. We want the government to construct what we call breakwaters. This will help the fisherfolk here. Cape Coast should be the first port of call because it is the worst hit when these disasters happen. As you can see, some family members of the deceased are wailing, and it's a bad sight here. I don't believe it is because we have too much sand on the shore. We hardly allow people to win the sand here. We have some rituals to perform that are yet to be performed, and that's why this has happened to us. We want lawyer Atudatsi to lead the cause for us to be giving the breakwaters so that these bad incidents won't recur. He should provide electricity and lights for the coastal towns because some sleep in darkness.
So let's get to our Central Regional correspondent, Richard Kojo-Nyako, for an update on the situation. Good morning, Kojo. And now, has the body of the drowned man been found?
No, the body has not been found. They are still making efforts to ensure that they find the body, but their efforts have not proved successful, so they are still performing more rituals to enable them get the body. But this morning, the fishermen are waking up to a day after the disaster struck, and so they are counting their costs. In the central region, there is no substantive NADMO coordinator because the one that was there retired, and so the NADMO has not been able to do anything to help the fishermen out. What we have witnessed now in the past hour is a visit by the Deputy Minister of Fisheries, Atukujo, whose constituency is Ekunfi and very close to where the disaster happened at Sopon, and Ankafo near Sopon as well. And then Fantiman MP has also visited the place. And so they are yet to make a statement on that one, what will happen, and their efforts. The effort they will put in helping the fishermen out. But the fishermen are now living in fear because they've heard that more, there are some stronger storms that would be hitting the coastal areas, and they fear that if it happens, the worst things might happen. And so that is their fear now. But they are attributing this kind of disaster to the sand-winning activities vigorously pursued along the coastal belt of the central region. People come and they win sand in large quantities, and this one, the fishermen say it has affected, the coastal areas or the seashore. Apart from the sand winning too, they are also attributing such superstition to the tidal waves that hit the coastal belt of the central region. So that is what is currently happening. Richard,
what's the mood in these communities? Are children going to school? Is it a very normal day?
Well, the place that the disaster struck in Cape Coast is very close to the main Cape Coast town, and so the children, some of them are going to school, but others are also wailing and weeping for the man that has not been found. The family of that man, they are in deep sorrow, and so they are waiting for the body of the man to be washed ashore. And so a day after the incident, the fishermen are just counting their costs, and they are hoping that they will get some help from authorities.
All right, Richard, and this man who is believed to have drowned, is he a fisherman?
Yeah, he is a fisherman.
All right.
There were four who were sending their vehicles to Elmina for safekeeping there, and when the disaster struck, and so he couldn't swim ashore, but the three others managed to swim ashore. Right,
thank you for the updates, Richard Kojo-Nyako. Now, similarly, hundreds of residents have been displaced in the Volta region, with communities such as Blekusu, Agavedi, Akplowoto, and Jita said to be the worst affected. Volta Regional Minister Dr. Archibald Letcher says, as a temporary measure, residents will take refuge in a school. Ivy Setoji is our Volta Regional correspondent, currently on tour of some affected communities with the Volta Regional NADMO coordinator, Divine Bosson, and joins us on the phone with the latest. Hello, Ivy.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Any help for victims so far on this NADMO tour?
What we were told was the regional office of the NADMO 2 hours or less will bring some relief items to the affected communities for the meantime. But for now, the Minister for Western Housing, Honorable Atachia, is touring the affected areas. He is just on his way to the affected area now. He earlier on had meetings with the MP for the municipality, Fifi Kwete, and the MCE and the NADMO board as well. He said this coordinates huge financial investment to be able to solve the situation, that they can't rely only on government to do that, but they need to take financial support for some organizations, especially the international organizations, to be able to solve this situation. So right now, based on his way to the affected communities, that is Blakusu, Agaveji, and Etenvaro.
All right, thank you very much. Ivy Setsuji would reach you during subsequent bulletins to find out what exactly the minister has been able to conclude on that particular tour. Now, Professor Kwesi Appiah-Nenado is a lecturer at the Faculty of Marine and Fish Science of the University of Ghana. He joins me on the phone to share some thoughts with us on the latest tidal waves we're experiencing. Good morning, sir. Thanks for your time. Unfortunately, we've lost Prof there. We'll try and reach him. But some other people within the industry are warning of higher tidal waves coming. But thank you for joining us. I hear we've been able to reach Prof on the line. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning.
Well, how often or how likely are communities along the coast, how likely are they to experience some of these cases?
Your question, the line is not very clear.
Prof, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm talking of frequency. Last year around this period, we heard of tidal waves hitting some communities. This year, we are hearing it again. Considering all that's happening, some have mentioned sand winning, talk about global warming. Communities along the coast, how likely are they to be experiencing this kind of case?
Okay, as we move forward, the frequency is going to increase because these things are being influenced by global systems, and we can talk about climate change. So the frequency, I'm afraid, is going to increase, and we therefore need to look at ways of mitigating against the impact.
Prof, looking at solutions, to what extent can relocation solve the problem?
Relocation will be an alternative. I mean, one of the solutions to look at. But it also comes with its own, issues. You relocate them to where? And imagine there is a chief somewhere who is being relocated to another community. Will he still continue to be a chief in that community? These are some of the issues that we need to look at. I believe that we need to confront the situation and be able to manage the situation as much as possible. People need to be made aware that moving forward, these problems are going to be part of us. And what are the ways by which we can solve some of these problems, I think, is what we should be looking at. There are so many ways, temporarily relocating them is one way we can look at it. Putting in engineering measures is another way of looking at it. And then putting in natural system of solving it by planting of, trees, wind-breaking trees, and, other measures are some of the things we could look at. Relocation is good, but it won't solve the problem.
All right, Prof. So what's your advice to government and coastal communities as an expert?
Yes. I was very happy when the government came up with the idea of establishing a coastal, authority. I think it's something we need to do. Having a coastal development authority is something we really have to do, because managing the coastal system or planning for the coastal area is different from planning for the midland areas, because the coastal areas have their own peculiar problems. The government should also encourage frequent monitoring so that we know what is happening. And once we know what is happening scientifically, we can advise or provide some solution. But a situation whereby there's a problem, quickly go there and put in ad hoc measures is not going to help us. We should have a comprehensive management system in place so that we can really scientifically understand the issues and be able to provide solutions. That is what I think the government can help us do.
Thank you very much for your time. Professor Kwesi Appiah-Ado is a lecturer at the Faculty of Marine and Fish Science of the University of Ghana. It's now time for business. Emmanuel Abuajiri-Afe is standing by.